So we're now going to talk about the structure and functionality of the Handey microservice, which, as you may expect, is going to extend those reusable base classes like base controller and base application and base service in order to provide an implementation that will give you back quotes from Jack Handey's Deep Thoughts, which was something that ran on Saturday Night Live many years ago. This particular microservice applies Java reactive concurrency. In particular, it uses Project Reactor's Flux and ParallelFlux reactive types. This is just a preview of coming attractions. We'll cover these things in a lot more detail here shortly. So let's talk about how this is structured. So what we have here is we have something called the Handey application, which extends the base application that we took a look at in the previous lesson. And you can see here that that's the base class that's reused by both of the different microservices, and it defines a run method that'll be used by both. And you can see what happens here in the main method of Handey application. It simply calls to the run method it inherited from base application and passes in the name of the class and any arguments. So that will take care of registering this with, or creating a name that can be used to register with the Eureka microservice for location discovery. Let's take a look at the HandeyController. This is very, very, very simple. That's what makes it so cool to have these reusable classes. So here's HandeyController. That's what's going to basically map these get and put methods to the right, get and put requests to the right methods. And everything comes from the base controller. So base controller is what defined the endpoint handler methods. All we have to do is just extend this. And then one more thing that we do here is we say what we want the return type to be. So in this case, the return type is going to be a list of quotes, a list of quote objects. And that makes it easy to plug and play, to have different kind of controllers that handle different kinds of things with different types of, say, reactive types as opposed to classic Java types. So I think you'll agree that the controller logic is very, very simple. We, of course, also make this a REST controller just to indicate to Spring that it needs to register it to receive the incoming requests that are designated for the route names that it handles in its in what the base controller defines. The next thing we're going to take a look at here is the structure and functionality of the HandeyService. Once again, this is super simple. The HandeyService is going to define the implementation methods. The implementation methods are going to be specified in the base service. So we saw the base service class. So that's the methods that have to be overridden by the HandeyService. And again, it provides a list of quotes. Those things are all consistent with the controller. As you well know by now, if you want to make something a service, you have to annotate it with the service annotation, which allows the auto detection of things like auto-wired mechanisms for doing dependency injection and inversion of control and so on. Here is the actual implementation of this particular microservice. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it right now because we're going to walk through it in more detail in a second. But in essence, what this does is this goes ahead and will take the incoming requests that are coming in, and it will do the processing of the requests and then return the results back to the client using Project Reactor, Flux, and ParallelFlux reactive types. And we've got some really clever logic in here we'll talk about in a second in more detail that allows us to switch seamlessly back and forth between single threading and parallel processing mode while using essentially the same structure of the code, which is one of the nice features we get by using the mechanisms available in Project Reactor. So that's a quick walkthrough of the HandeyService. We're going to talk about its implementation in more detail in just a second.